All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Marketing and Promoting Your Business on the Web. Today's webinar is a production of the Virginia Small Business Development Center. The Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our counseling services are available at no charge. For more information and to schedule an appointment with one of your local centers, go to our website, virginiasbdc.org, and click on locations to find the location closest to you. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm the facilitator for today's webinar. This webinar, Marketing and Promoting Your Business on the Web, is the second in our Road to Recovery series. Today's presenter, Ray Sidney-Smith, you may be familiar with because he's been delivering our Google and Beyond webinar series for several years. Ray is a digital marketing strategist and president of W3 Consulting. He's also the author of So Low Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Mobile Marketing Small Business Strategy Explained, as well as a Google Small Business Advisor, Evernote Certified Consultant, and Hootsuite Global Brand Ambassador. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. We're recording today's presentation, and it, along with the slides, will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. If you have any questions during the presentation, type those questions in the question window, and Ray will do his best to answer them at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, here's Ray.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC and the local centers for having me here for this seminar. As Tracy noted, now is the time to ask questions. Feel free to go ahead and ask me questions. Tracy has the question panel open, so go ahead and do that, and I'll be happy to stay as long as we have to answer the questions that you have. If you have questions after this, my email address will be on the final slide, and so you can address any questions that are a private nature or, kind of more specific to your circumstances. You can go ahead and send those over to me, and I'll be happy to try and do what I can. If you are a Twitter fan like I am, feel free to go ahead and tweet at me at W3 Consulting, hashtag it. I think the slide there is not updated, but you can just update this one to just whatever hashtag you want to, marketing, promoting, web, you name it, and I'll see it and I'll be able to respond. And of course, follow at LF Small Business, which is the Lord Fairfax Small Business Development Center, and at Virginia SBDC on Twitter. They're updating you about upcoming programs and information relating to the various government programs as well as the SBDC programs that are coming out there. So just pay attention to what they're putting out there because it's good information and it's vital for you to be aware of. That being the case, today's agenda is pretty straightforward. What I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about digital marketing basics, because many of you may have read the title and said, oh, marketing and promoting on the web, and may not know what that means. And so I want to make sure that in this series we cover those kind of ideas and terms and what I'll be covering in this section, as opposed to all of the vast area of digital marketing that we could be discussing at any given time. But if you have a question about something more specific within that, feel free to ask the question and I'll tell you whether or not I can answer that here or at another time. I'm going to talk about a little bit about consumer psychology. I'm going to pull up a really interesting article, and I'll put a link to this in the slides for you all. I just want to cover a little bit about consumer psychology when you're dealing with these kinds of uncertain times. And then I'm going to go into a 5-stage marketing strategy that any of you can use, and I'm going to try to walk us through a business that is in that particular circumstance or in this circumstance with us as a kind of case study, walking us through what we would be doing in that circumstance if we were that. I'm going to use the example of a cobbler, someone who makes and repairs shoes, and they are a local service business, and they provide a physical good or work on a physical good, and so it gives us an opportunity to look at it from many different angles, both from providing communications that are virtual and in person, as well as physical and potentially non-physical services to customers. And then I'm going to close us out with some final thoughts and then leave some time for question and answer. So that's our agenda for today, and let's get into it. So let's start off with some digital marketing basics. When I talk about digital marketing, frequently what comes to my mind are those kind of sleazy salespeople who talk about how you can do all kinds of fancy things on the web and generate leads and make $1 million and all of that stuff. And really for the rest of us who are in business and actually care about our customers and have more intimate relationships with our colleagues and so on and so forth, it just sounds like a lot of jargon and garbage. And I want to make sure that we're all paying attention to the fact that first and foremost, we're dealing with a global pandemic right now. We're in the midst of it, and we are dealing with this as business owners during and after it. So just take recognition of the fact that we are in uncertain times. And so things that I'm talking about today are things that are shifting as we are discussing them, and as well as shifting after we discuss them, and are still running, managing, surviving, and thriving as businesses. So just be mindful of that as we make our way forward, and be very cautious of people who are out there claiming to be an expert about, email marketing and so on and so forth, and they want you to buy their course and so on and so forth. Many times those things end up being a waste. And I just recently came across this example on a LinkedIn post where a real LinkedIn expert talked about this, person who was talking about this LinkedIn strategy that was really just a tactic that was really not true, and was obviously taking advantage of people in an uncertain period. So he latched onto their fears and was getting them to pay him for some kind of nonsense. So just be mindful of that as we make our way through kind of public service announcement number one. But going beyond that, what are the fundamentals of digital marketing that you can actually use today? And these are the parts. One is your website. As Tracy mentioned, I published a book in 2014 called Solomo Success. And the whole idea behind the Solomo Success strategy was that your website is a hub. It's a hub for you to be able to generate sales. And so often than not, we forget that people are on social media to be social. They are in their email to interact and engage on a one-to-one level. They're usually not thinking about buying or selling things in that environment. Context matters, but websites where you have a business that represents itself is someplace where people tend to think about buying things, right? You go to Amazon, you go to a business service website, you are interested in that product or service, and so therefore you are in a buying mindset. So we have to consider mindset of the visitor in that process, and websites are where traditionally sales happen. Not that someone can't interact with you and have transactional communications about sales via email or via private messaging on social media and so on and so forth, but predominantly websites are where sales happen. And that's why in the last webinar where we talked about e-commerce, it's so important for you to understand how to do that well. Then we get to the mobile web. So much of the world has gone mobile, and I will stand here. I have my notes down here, so forgive me. I'm not going to look at you all the time throughout the seminar. But the one of the really important notes that I found in doing my research and looking at all of the data from this is that for many years, as well as in my book, I talk about the idea of a mobile first perspective. This is going to be the only time I step back on this, which is during this circumstance, we've actually seen a slide back in that number, and we've seen more people on desktops than we have, more people using desktops today than we see them using mobile again. And I think that's purely because more people are at home, they're on their laptops, and so therefore we just see a much more desktop first audience right now. So of all of the times, while after this it'll probably go back to being a mobile first environment, right now desktop is really where it's at. So just be mindful of that for during the situation, while we're still having stay-at-home orders and in this transitional period before businesses are able to open around the country. We're going to be seeing kind of a desktop first, but right thereafter will be mobile. So don't think that you can just rest your laurels on mobile for the future, but certainly right now it should be desktop focused. Then we get to the mobile app ecosystem, and this is where we don't just have a website or a mobile optimized website. We are now thinking about how do we get into the App Store and engage with our consumers on that level. And one part of marketing is being found where your customers are at. I tend to liken the mobile app stores, that is the Google Play Store as well as the Apple App Store on iOS, as kind of the modern day mall. And this is where consumers go to look for things to solve problems. And while we walk through a mall in yesteryear, and sometimes we still do that today, we still have malls and people walk around malls. You walk around and something catches your eye and it says, oh, you know what, this might appeal to me. I might want this. But also, this might solve a problem. This might solve something that I have a need felt or want for. And that's what the mobile apps of today are and can do for you. So just remember that mobile apps are kind of like that in the sense that people can serendipitously, but also thoughtfully and mindfully look for solutions in the app store. So you have to optimize your marketing for being found where people are going and looking for solving those problems. Next is email. Tried and true. Before there were websites, there was email. And it seems like email just keeps getting told that it's going to die, but it's not. And so just remember that email is a very, very important and functional part of digital marketing. We then come to social media. And we have many recorded webinars that Tracy has sat through with me talking about social media there in the archives. So feel free to look at those. We have lots of stuff about social media, and many of those still apply. And I'll be touching on some of the pieces of what you need to pay attention to today in the webinar. And then I just wanted to make a quick note about that. So these are really the 5 fundamental aspects of digital marketing in terms of platform or channels that you want to be found on. But there are other social technologies. For example, a wiki, like the tool MediaWiki, the open source software that runs Wikipedia. It's a social technology. You could easily have that on your website or as your website. You could produce a forum, a web forum. You could have community platforms. There's so many different things out there that are of a social nature that fit outside the context of what we traditionally call as social media. Media just means files, text, images, and so on and so forth that other people can collaborate on, right? I can comment on a blog post. That's why it's social media. I can comment on a post on Facebook and so on and so forth. That's why it's social media. But there are many different social technologies. So don't pigeonhole yourself into just one thing like Facebook or otherwise when you start doing this process of ideating around managing through uncertain times. Uncertain times are the times when you should be thinking creatively. You should be brainstorming and thinking, how can we make our business better and more interesting and more vibrant than it was before, so that we come out of this period better and more resilient than we were before. So what I want to do now is touch a little bit on the kind of psychology of what happens in any kind of economic downturn. Now, of course, downturns happen for all kinds of reasons. Wars. We have, in this case, a disease like a pandemic. We have the subprime mortgage crisis, where subprime mortgages were being leveraged, and that whole real estate piece fell through. We have climate change and natural disasters that cause, large migration of humans and other kinds of things that happen, like fires and all those things. Cyber attacks. We have lots of different ways in which people respond to uncertainty, to disaster, to conflict, and otherwise. And we as business owners need to actually start thinking about all of these things, because those are the reasons that make our consumers or buyers, whatever market you're catering to, B2B, B2G, B2C, or otherwise. It really caters to how they buy and whether they decide to buy from you or not. So this is one of those things where I'm going to give you some thoughts, and I'm actually going to be reading from this really wonderful Harvard Business Review article that covers some of these pieces. But remember that you really need to think about your consumer, your individual consumer in all of this. Start from this place, but this is not where you're going to end. So this is actually a table that was that was produced and is in an article. The link is at the bottom of your page there, but I'll also put I guess it'll be in the slides that are shared to you by Tracy. So You can find this article here, but in essence, what they do is they group buyers into 4 different categories, and so traditionally in any kind of economic downturn, which we don't know how long this economic downturn is going to last. This one is of a forced nature, where we are, suspending business and or reducing business to essential businesses, as they're called, purposefully. But you never know when these things are going to happen and how long they're going to last, right? So we need to be flexible and dynamic, as I've talked about in the past. And these are the 4 categories that they talk about. They talk about the notion of having the slam on the brakes folks. And these are the folks who are hit the hardest, and therefore they feel the need to scale back across the board, right? They're going to really, postpone or eliminate any expenditures as possible. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're all low income. They could be higher income folks who are just spooked, and therefore they're going to cease all purchasing that is non-essential. We then have the pained but patient. These are folks that are stable, right? They're resilient, and as the article notes, they're optimistic about the long term, but they're short term pessimistic, and so they're gonna hold back on some of their purchases that they otherwise wouldn't have made, that they otherwise would have made in a normal economic time, and so they're going to scale back on those items. It says here they're less confident about the prospects for recovery in the near term, or their ability to maintain their standard of living. It says, like the slam on the brakes consumers, they economize in all areas, but just a little less aggressively. And so they're the largest segment of the group, and that's where people who are actually going after the middle of the economy, and middle class of the economy, are going to have the most difficult time. So if that's where you are at and where your economies of scale really work in your own sales, you need to start thinking about how to adjust to that climate. Then there's the comfortably well-off group. These are folks who, for the most part, are not affected. They're wealthy, and they're luxury buyers, and they're otherwise they feel secure about their ability to weather the storm. They're going to be investing in things. This is like, think of Warren Buffett is one of the wealthiest people on the planet, but it's the Warren Buffett types, which are the people who are able to invest in infrastructure, invest widely, because things are going to be cheaper now because of the economic downturn. They're going to invest. And finally, there's the live for today. Now, this is an interesting group for me, and so I had to do a little bit of digging and research into this group. But the HBR article talks about the idea that the segment carries, I'm quoting here, segment carries on as usual, and for the most part remains unconcerned about savings. The group responds to the recession mainly by extending their timetables for major purchases. They're typically urban and younger, and they're more likely to rent than own, and they spend on experiences rather than on physical goods. So they're unlikely to change their consumption behavior unless they become unemployed. And of course, these are folks who are sensitive, just like the slam on the brakes folks, to being unemployed. So just be mindful of that. And then they talk about the 4 different components, the 4 different types of goods, products and services. And those are essentials, which are necessary for survival or perceived essential to well-being. Treats, those are indulgences whose immediate purchase is considered justifiable. Postponables, those are needed or desired items whose purchase can be reasonably put off. And then expendables, perceived as unnecessary or unjustifiable. Strong words there. The reason I show you this, and the reason I bring it up, is can you place your consumers in this matrix and therefore identify who and where you are currently? And will that be where your business stays? Or can you move to a different place? I don't know, but you need to sit down and start thinking about that. So write down, are your customers really the slam on the brakes folks, or are they really the comfortably well off? They feel comfortable, confident, but they're going to feel much more likely to take an expendable and take it off the table than not. Or are they a pain but patient person, and maybe they will move over to the other side for postponable or not, right? Just based on your industry, your experience, and otherwise. So really start to think about the consumer behavior and their current psychology, and start going from that basis, right? So again, this is the this is the abstract, right? This is looking at it from a very high level, and then we can start going down to using the information we can gather, which is using this 5-stage strategy. So what I like to do is I like to start off with the very basics, right? Number one is when when they talk about, like, if you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. I always talk about it like pause, take a breath, like breathe, then plan and repeat. Pause, breathe, plan, repeat. And this really helps you understand that panicking is never the appropriate choice in the matter. There are people out there who must panic, and they don't have the luxury to sit in this webinar as you are with me right now. And I feel for them, and we should all feel for them. But the fact that you're sitting down with me right now tells me that you're able to pause, take a breath, plan, and repeat. And what we do in that period is a couple things. One, we have to think about short-term planning. And short-term planning really covers a couple of things in my mind. One is assessing your current situation. Where's your cash flow? Where's your marketing budget? Where's your advertising budget? Where are your customers right now? Are they in one of those categories where it's red, and you need to be able to work a little bit harder than maybe some other businesses where those customers are where their customers are in the green? This is the time to do that level of assessment. You're going to need to do some strategic cutting if in the short term. And I think that's across the board. If you're a small business owner, as I am, we're going to have to cut. But there's no reason to cut, just willy-nilly. Don't stop your marketing budgets. Don't stop those things if you have them set into place. The way I think about it is do nothing dramatic, okay? So in the short term, what you want to do is you want to cut very strategically. Cut a little bit here, cut a little bit there. And if you take a little bit off the top all across the board, you can really make, a slimmer operation while not, doing yourself too much harm in the long term. Okay, so that's the short-term issues. If you're capable, just scale back a little bit in little ways until you get to a place where you're comfortable with surviving during this situation. Then we need to start thinking about making small changes in the short term that actually benefit us. So I want you to make small changes as we talk about the rest of the strategy. Is make a small change, watch it for a week. Make a small change, watch it for a week. And what we really want to do is to watch both things. One are results, and the other are trends. For example, are we seeing more infections nationwide versus locally? Are we seeing more people recovering? Are we seeing supply side issues happening as we look for product or otherwise globally moving around? Are we worried about local supply? Are we worried about local labor? Those are the types of things that in the short term, if you're paying attention to the local and national and international trends, the global trends, you can look at those, see what the results you're getting, and then do this all over again. Pause, take a breath, review and plan, and then repeat. Okay, so this is the idea. Then we go to a little bit longer range planning. We want to look at the longer tail, and here is that what I really am seeing from having started a business in an economic recession, the reality is that you start in a position that is understanding of running slim and having difficulty across the board. So you kind of get used to that. But in the long term, what I recognized is that if you invest during this time, you will actually be so much better off than your competition, if you want to call them competition. You're going to be better off than the rest of the market if you invest in this now. So the short term, yes, it's going to be slimmer. It's going to be a little bit more challenging. But if you can be persistent, if you can be resilient in this environment, your business will be better off for having done the appropriate short-term planning, make a change, measure, and then adjust, minutely as you make your way along. But ultimately, you're going to have better brand loyalty and a stronger infrastructure, marketing infrastructure, for being able to survive not just this economic downturn, but future economic downturns as well. Okay, so there's that longer range planning. I will make note that there's price sensitivity across the board. So don't think that no matter what market you're going after, that you shouldn't be thinking about price sensitivity. But the price sensitivity just is so much different for different buyers. And so think about that in the short-term and long-term planning, which is that a short-term discount may hurt you in the long term, and a short-term reduction in payment plans may actually hurt you in the long term as well. So just think about all of those pieces as you're doing short-term and long-term planning that I've seen certainly bite me from how I've structured my payment plans with clients, but also with clients that I'm working with. And when we talk about pricing strategy, especially in these periods, you need some level of consistency. Even if you're giving, say you're giving a client a little bit more leniency during this period because of the situation, make it very clear that that's not a long-term or permanent strategy for being able to run your business, because then you get past the downturn, but now many clients who are asking or seeing that same level of leniency and then take advantage of that. And that means you can't make payroll, or you can't cover rent, or those kinds of things. And that becomes a problem for the business over the long term. And I've actually seen a lot of businesses fail after a downturn, not because they didn't survive the downturn, because they had a volume against their competitors, but that in good times, they were still running too lenient in their operations. And so therefore the competitors were not, and were capable of dominating by having stronger infrastructure. So just be mindful of that in terms of how you're negotiating, both financially, legally, and otherwise with your clients. Okay, that's short-term and long-term planning. Back to the consumer psychology piece. What I was talking about before in the consumer psychology piece was that we need to understand this as kind of an archetype, as an abstraction of data that we have learned from social scientists and from business research over time. But the reality is that now is the time to be connecting with your key clients, key partners, and asking them questions. There is not a time when it is not good to ask questions from your customer base, from your potential audience, from your current audience, and your past audience. Now is the time to connect with them. You need to get out there and you need to talk to them. Start doing, case in point, I've started doing this. Every Monday morning, I've started going live on YouTube and just talking to business owners and telling them the information that I know that I can help them with, and so on and so forth. The reason for that is that it's important for me to be talking to key clients, key partners, and sending that information to them and letting them know how we are. Behind the scenes, I'm sending emails to our key clients and letting them know, hey, by the way, we're still in business. We're still doing our work. We want to be able to help you. How can we do that? And you need to be doing that same thing. Now is the time to be collecting data as readily and quickly as you can, so that you know what people are dealing with. Because if you know what people are dealing with, that's the basis of marketing, right? Felt need or want. What is their felt need or want? What are their challenges, and can you solve them with your business? And that may mean that you need to adjust. That means you need to change. But it's really important that you do that market research. Now is the time to do it. Do not wait, because I would imagine that somebody else is planning or doing the same thing and will ultimately, compete with you if you do not do it yourself. Okay, so this gets to our next stage, which is lead generation. So many times when we think about digital marketing, we want to be out there, posting on social media and so on and so forth. And usually the first thing I say is, hold the brakes, stop the social media. I mean, really, just stop all the campaigns, because if you are not doing the right infrastructure pieces, then if I have an audience of people who are listening and enjoying my content and not actually ultimately doing anything for me, and it's not charitable, then I'm an entertainer. I'm just performing for the fun of it. But if you are a business owner, you need to be generating leads so that you're able to actually do something with those people. You want to have persuasion over them so that your sphere of influence grows and you're capable of actually leading those people through, if you want to call it a funnel or the sales cycle or whatnot. But ultimately, they should be paying you for something. Some portion of those people should be paying you for your products or services. So lead generation is made up of really two fundamental pieces. That's content and advertising. On the content side, we want to think about a couple of things, and I'm going to run through them for you here. One is stay on brand. So much of what I've been seeing, one organization we all know, Amazon. Amazon has stayed on brand, but unfortunately, it's the wrong brand. I am guilty of being a prolific Amazon buyer. I mean, Amazon really probably captures a lot of my purchase power because I spend so much on Amazon. But they put out these ads that clearly go counter to the narrative that is currently out there about worker conditions and anti-labor and all of these other things, which, politics aside, the issues that they're talking about clearly contrast starkly with what the media is talking about. You need to be conscious of that and conscientious about responding in ways that actually address those issues. So if you have issues with regard to your brand, make sure that you're addressing them in ways that actually thoughtfully, authentically respond to it. Don't just act like it's not real, because otherwise you're going to actually send yourself down a worse spiral from a publicity perspective. And so all your public relations are going to be worth nothing, because they're going to understand you're inauthentic. And today we have the internet. Inauthenticity is very easily seen through. So you need to be very conscious about that. So one is stay on brand. Many times this is not the time to start thinking about how to go off message and start using words like COVID-19 and coronavirus in all of your social posting. You don't need to do that, but you can include themes such as safety. One of the themes that I think is really important is, how is your business adapting to be more safe for you? And not just safe for this pandemic, but think about it from the perspective that if you're trying to build a road to recovery, there are many roads to recovery in this country and globally that we should be paying attention to. As I noted before, there are natural disasters. There are cyber attacks. How are you making your business more resilient across the board? Don't limit yourself here. Make this an opportunity to really set yourself apart from the rest of the crowd. And so that means your content needs to put your brand forward and say, listen, we're embracing the challenge. We're stepping up to the plate, and we're really going to excel across the board. We're beefing up our cyber resilience, our cybersecurity practices. We're making sure that our employees, if they're working from home, they're not going to get phishing attacked, because we're making sure they're trained on how to spot a phishing email and to make sure that they do the appropriate mitigations. We're making sure that our employees have firewalls on their home networks. And you know what that does for me as a consumer who's fairly technologically literate and capable of understanding that, you know what, I really want to do business with someone who cares about their employees enough to protect them, but also cares enough about me to protect my data and my privacy. So think about those pieces as you're thinking about the brand. Can we support safety? Can we promote privacy? Can we promote security in those ways? Because a lot of people are afraid right now, even when we go back after all of this is done and we start going back to retail, and we start going back to collective environments, we are still going to have a level of folks who are traumatized, probably young people who will be traumatized by this, who will need your brand to show them that level of safety and support. There's a psychological construct called psychological safety, and this is something that we are raised with. Children develop this, and into adulthood, if we are not given that level of psychological safety, the ability to take a risk and then know that we have a safety net behind us, we will not do things. So one of the great motivators you as a business owner can do is to show that level of safety to them. Give them psychological safety so that they can take the risk, which is spending money with you, and getting a reward for that, and know that the risk is mitigated in some way, shape, or form. So show them how you're being safe. Just little things. Pizzeria that has disposable wet wipes on the counter, to the local home improvement store that set up this very elaborate line system outside their door so that people had to socially distance before they entered. Little things like that are just really, really helpful, and those can be, snap a photo of it, snap a video of customers properly social distancing, showing good social support and kind of solidarity in all of this. Those are really great posts to talk about and promote on social media and so on and so forth. So really stay on brand, but include these messages because they're good for you, and they're good for the brand, and they're good for your community. Okay, next is review all of your scheduled content. I cannot impress upon you enough the number of times I come across things, and the things that we thought would be great 3 months ago when we scheduled all of our social is no longer appropriate. It's groups of people having a great time, business owners sitting in a meeting discussing really important issues. Those things, of course, are not happening now. So you need to adjust. Maybe those are images now of people connecting, by video. Maybe these are people receiving packages of your goods, people receiving your services through other means, but make it appropriate and make it show what you are doing today that is different than yesterday. And as we transition back, that means changing your marketing again, messaging to match that and to look like that in the future. But right now, your messaging should really look like how your product services are being delivered and how your consumers are actually experiencing your products and services. Don't be visually misaligned, because that does create a lack of consistency in the brand, and that means I will lose trust in the brand and I won't want to stay with you into the future. I want to know how you're responding today, and I want to know how you're responding tomorrow in that time frame. Okay. Ultimately, though, I want everybody to recognize that now is the time to increase your content marketing efforts. I've seen so many blogs just decide to go fallow because they think, oh, it's just not, it's the least of my worries. You were getting good traffic before, you were doing really well with converting, and now all of a sudden I see blogs just kind of putting it by the wayside. The shock of it all hopefully has worn off a little bit. We're capable of getting back to thinking about the pause, breathe, plan, repeat thoughts. And now is the time to get back and start thinking about how are you creating content, how are you getting out in front of your customers, and how can you shine above others in that space. Okay, continuing on, just a couple other things that are more, transactional or just practical. If you have a Google My Business listing, if you're on any of the like Yelp or other types of local directories, you must update your listings to show that you are still in business. You want to make sure that you identify your name, address, phone, and hours of operations. That's the NAP or NAP. But it's name, address, phone, and hours of operation. If you are now taking calls from your mobile device because your main line is at the retail location and you weren't able to forward it or aren't able to forward it, whatever the reasons are, make sure you update those pieces because that's how people are finding that information out. I ask my assistants, all of the various home activated voice assistants, multiple times a day, is this business open right now? Because I have no idea. And so, since they have adjusted hours of operation, they have different phone numbers. If you update that information, that means I'm much more likely to be able to get in touch with you. And that means that your customers are much more likely to be able to and will then be able to buy from you. So update your local directory listings. That also includes posting to them. So for example, Google My Business has what could be considered like a blog area. They're called posts, and you can actually list all of your products and services in the Google My Business listing. So you can list products and you can list services. So if those products or services have modified, make sure to go in there and modify those there as well, so that people know what it is that you can provide. And so now you're going to show up in Google Maps and when people are doing searches on Google and across any of the other local directory listings. So make sure that you're updating all of them. So that's that. Under your social profiles, say if you have a Facebook page, make sure you update your Facebook page. Has your address changed? Has the way in which you are receiving customers changed? Has your phone changed? Email, otherwise, hours. Update all of those in your social profiles and make sure that you are posting regular changes. As the governor makes notifications about businesses opening or businesses needing to stay closed, make sure you're letting your customers know they may not be paying as close attention to what's being said out there, and they may be staying at home notwithstanding, whatever the government says. So you need to make sure that you're communicating with them what you're doing. And again, what you're doing to keep them safe, what you're doing to make sure that you're capable of continuing to provide product and service that they want, and making sure that you're communicating where your business is. Being transparent and forthright with your audience is really, really important at this point. Okay, so let's switch gears now over to the lead generation side. Just a couple of comments about this. If you're running ads, now is the time to review your ads to make sure the content is appropriate. Same thing as what I was talking about regarding the your content marketing. Just making sure that if you have stuff scheduled and it's running on automatic right now, that you make sure that it still makes sense. If you're running ads that don't make sense, now is the time to fix those. Across the board, ads are going to decrease. So your ROAS, your return on ad spend, is going to increase if you start to double down on this. So if you are able to, if you have the budget for ads, now is the time to invest in advertising, because you're going to get less. You're going to get more for less dollars. Some of the things to think about is, for example, Bing. Bing has a huge desktop ad search base, because they're, Microsoft Windows, Microsoft owns Bing, they own LinkedIn, and you can do this very insightful targeting using LinkedIn profiles through the Bing advertising platform. So both Bing and LinkedIn ads and ads across the board are lower in price, and you can go after a more affluent purchaser on Bing today because you can target them through LinkedIn ads. So think about what you're doing in that regard to really take advantage of the current advertising market. Okay, some examples of people really doing a great job with ads are, look at the ads that Indeed is doing on TV right now. They're doing some really, really bang up ads. They're showing solidarity. They're showing what products and services and why their products and services make sense at this time in history. Aldi is true to their brand, right? They were the first to go out there and make sure that their employees had the appropriate gear to be able to interact in the community. They instituted social distancing in their stores. They reduced their hours of operation. They increased. They added hours specifically for those individual populations that could be affected most greatly by COVID-19. And they put all of that messaging out there into their ads. Brilliant, Mark, because they were living true to their values. They were speaking from their brand, and they were speaking about things they were already doing. So the media and the messaging that was out there matched their advertising. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to see you doing. That lead generation is getting out there and getting eyeballs on your content. Okay. And once we get eyeballs on our content, now we have to have a function for being able to bring people closer to the buying process. And that really is in lead capture and lead nurturing. I want to cover just very quickly these pieces. One is you need to create content that captures contact information. Usually that's an email address, but it could be phone numbers. It could be other types of ways of interacting with customers, like a form that completes a phone call. So someone types in a phone number and automatically generates a phone conference between the two of you. But you need to capture contact information in order to be able to increase the likelihood of a lead turning into a sale. I frequently talk about something called a VDA, a valuable downloadable asset. Others call them lead magnets. The difference for me is that VDAs are downloadable, and so they have value that lasts beyond me watching it. So I want to make sure that the valuable downloadable assets are on my leads devices. I want them to live there, hopefully forever, so that when they do a search later on down the road, that they have them. So you want to create these types of lead magnets. Lead magnets are basically contents of value that will get someone to give up something of value, their contact information, in exchange for you to continue to market or sell to them. Some examples. Webinars just like this, go live on YouTube, go get a webinar tool and start hosting registration for content. They could be telenars, which are just basically phone-based seminars. That business never died, by the way. I know a coach to this day, a business coach, who does all of his business via telenar. People dial in to a phone conference line, and he does his entire business, and he makes a good living. Okay, so telenars are not dead. Then there are podcasts where you can have both paid and free podcasts. You can have videos that you're doing in all kinds of format, live streaming or otherwise. You can do a newsletter where you are capturing email addresses for being able to send them additional content. In the content that you're sending them will include some sales messages. Ebooks, PDF guides, workbooks, add tools to your website. One of the greatest ways to build up a site that continually brings back traffic is to make it functional. That's actually something that we at W3 Consulting are considering. I was thinking the other day, we could actually build from all of the internal expertise, a tool that covers SEO for our clients. How could we build an SEO tool where people can analyze their SEO tool? And I thought, oh, we could do that. And let's see if that's something that people would be interested in having and coming to our website to gain access to. And then, of course, we can capture an email. And if they want our services, they can get them, right? So you can do virtual consultations where you can say, hey, I'll give you 15 minutes if you fill out this form. And now you have a 15-minute call or video meeting with that client, and you talk to them about those things. These are the lead capture, lead nurturing pieces. Lead capture is just getting the lead into your system in some way, shape, or form. Lead nurturing is how much of this content they need to get over time, right? Do they need to receive your newsletter for 6 months, 12 months before they make a sale? And that really depends upon your business and your sales cycle. But you may need to create this type of lead nurturing campaign after the lead capture campaign, and some mix of these types of content. So now start thinking about it. What things would you create on the lead capture side? Which things would you create on the lead nurture side that will get people to buy from you, and then ultimately start tracking which things are successful? Okay, now we get to sales. And this is really quite simple. You want to flash back to the last webinar and what I covered. So go back and watch the e-commerce tools that we talked about and the strategy that I talked about. I talked about those 6 steps that walk you through choosing the right e-commerce tool. I'm sure that we have done at least 1 or 2 other webinars in the Virginia SBDC library of webinars that talk about e-commerce. So look back at those and really focus in on that. As I said before, websites are typically where the sales happen. So you need to make sure that you can do a couple things. One is, are you differentiating or creating new products? Presumably, you're going to differentiate your product or service based on the current needs of your clients. So whether they're digital and or physical goods, are you changing the way in which you're providing them today versus in the past? Some of you will not. If you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, and you've never been face-to-face with your customers, they have always transacted by phone and email, then this is really not going to affect you. But if you are providing handmade crafts and your customers are people who walk into your physical store to be able to access those, and then you come to me and you say, well, I can't do that now. Well, the next logical thing is, how do we create a new environment where we can do that? Are we going to do virtual video tours of the store that we're now publishing on live stream on YouTube or on Instagram Live or on Facebook Live? Are we going to be able to differentiate ourselves from others by doing virtual trunk shows? If I sell jewelry and I want to show you custom jewelry that I can make for you, or video consultations, as we talked about before, you're going to have to adapt to this and really think creatively about how you provide your products and services. Next up, and you're going to have to do that through the web. I mean, you're not going to be able to do that in person, so you really need to think about this functionally from the web. Next is, of course, inventory, fulfillment, deliverables, and shipping. How are you now getting your product to you? How are you manufacturing your product, and how are you getting that inventory to both fulfilled and shipped to customers? If you have deliverables like digital goods and otherwise, again, go back to the prior webinar and look at the various tools that allow you to be able to scale up the delivery of digital goods and then handle the physical goods stuff as well. Okay, then we talk about taking and making payments. E-commerce at its core is your ability to be able to, if I want to give you my money, you should be able to take my money online, right? You should be able to take it through your website, take it through some kind of portal, and gone are the days of people using purely cash or calling you with a credit card number, those kinds of things. You must be able to take money the way that they want to give you their money. Okay. Next up is the post-sale nurture process. And this really gets bundled into 2 different pieces, okay? So on one side are the referrals. So woohoo, you've been able to take my money and in the e-commerce side, and you've delivered a great service to me or a great product to me. I've received it and I'm happy. Well, the next thing you need to do in your digital marketing, especially in this economic downturn, is to lean on those people who have already bought from you and get them to refer you to others, right? One, that's through more content. You can create more content that's out there that is purely for them to be able to share to their audience. Next is to ask. So often than not, people don't know that you do business by referral. They don't know that you need the referrals as a local business. You need to tell people, hey, I was really appreciative of you working with me. I was so happy to be able to provide this service or product to you. Did you know we do business by referral. Referrals are the lifeblood of our business. And if you could send us referrals of people you know that also need our product or service, that means a lot to us. It helps us pay the bills. It helps us keep our employees and our local economies strong. That message by itself is very important, and one in which you need to be making sure you're doing post-sale in your nurturing process. And so many times you forget to do that. You don't solicit reviews, you don't solicit referrals, and that ultimately means those people walk away and they don't come back. Okay. Then, of course, the other reason you want them to come back is as repeat customers. We want to be able to think about, can we develop a subscription model where I get paid, I pay you as a business on a regular basis for the products or services that I need. Case in point, Amazon has their services where you can order food goods or vitamins or whatever, and it just shows up. I get shampoo and other kinds of things, and it just gets delivered on a schedule. I know how much shampoo I use every year. I don't have that much hair, so I get to schedule my shampoo, and it just gets delivered. Can you do that same thing? And now you have more predictable income sources because you know what people are buying and how they're buying it. So obviously that's in a commodity market, but there are lots of other non-commodity markets that you can use to be able to do this kind of thing. So think about subscription models. Think about incentives for returning customers, okay? And be mindful of this. Remember, as I talked about before, short-term planning and long-term planning requires you to think, what's the long-term effect of the short-term mitigations? And so giving incentives for returning customers needs to make sense both now and in the future, and making sure they're aware that incentives now don't mean incentives later. And if you're giving something of value away for free now, make sure that they know that it's something of value. So don't give away a $100 product if you don't tell them this was $100 and I'm making it $0 for you or 50% off or whatever, so that they're aware of the value that you're providing them at a discount now during this pandemic. And then after that, you will resume the appropriate pricing. Just have a couple final thoughts, and then we'll get into questions. And these are just things that I came across in both my research and just thinking about this whole uncertain period as a whole. One is I've been seeing physical retail environments that are both doing a bang up job of modifying their retail experience so that people are still experiencing a positive retail experience, and those that are doing it very poorly. You must think from a marketing perspective. And again, I'm coming at you from a marketing perspective. You need to modify your physical retail experience so that people know that you have a commitment to their safety. Remember, now it's an immediate need, right? I don't want to get infected, or I don't want to infect others, and so therefore, what are you doing to make me and my community and my family safe? But after this, there's going to be a residual period of time where people will still be feeling a little jittery about coming to your restaurant and sitting down and having dinner in a crowd. They're going to feel a little jittery about coming to your tax preparing business and sit down where other people have put their hands and touched things and interacted with your point of sale system and so on and so forth. What are you doing to make sure that you're not only making those modifications, but also promoting that you're doing that? Your retail environment, your website needs to tell people, hey, these are the things we're doing. And we're doing them because we care. We care about you. We care about our customers. We care about our community. And you need to be marketing that stuff as much as you are doing it. You need to be doing it first. Don't lie to people. And then beyond that, then you need to be actually implementing these things and communicating and messaging to people what you are doing. Invest in new marketing infrastructure. This is the time to do it. If you're slow, if your business is slow right now because of the stay-at-home orders, if you are feeling the crunch of customers that may not be coming to you, now's the time to do reskilling and upskilling. You say, oh, you know what? I'm not so great with the Facebook, right? Now is the time to learn Facebook. Why not? This is the time to excel in that space, reskill yourself to get good at it, and to focus on being able to do that. If you feel like you're not really savvy with email marketing, there are plenty of truly valuable and good courses on learning about email marketing. Now's the time to do that, not only for you, but also for your staff. Maybe you have a marketing person that you hire a couple hours a week, and she's really good, but she doesn't know anything about running ads. Well, get her in front of a Google Ads specialist, someone who can train her in how to run basic ads. And now you have someone who is going to be more resilient and better for you after this is all over. The other side is any level of marketing infrastructure that leads to better tools and automation for the business. Can you set up something with your CRM so that you have a better, more consistent sales process or better, more consistent marketing process with your customers? Now is the time to do that stuff if you're able to. And then finally, I know this seems obtuse, but we're going to get beyond this. It's all going to be, kind of water under the bridge. This is going to be a time for the history books, but we will get through this. And hopefully we'll get this through this better better for it. But when we think about all of this in the past, do not forget the lessons learned, which is that having cash reserves for operations, for running ads, for marketing, with those come the riches after the next downturn. We're going to have the next recession. We're going to have the next economic downturn. We're going to have the next disaster. It's going to strike. And while it may be, a skeptical view, it's a realistic one. And so think about after this, how can we put just a little bit of money away so that we have enough money for a couple of months worth of operations, or maybe 6 months worth of operations, ideally, plus some money for marketing and growing during the next downturn, and socking that money away that, you can feel confident going forward into the next 5-10 years of business, that you'll be prepared for the next one. And that will make you a more resilient business. And I know that if that message came from me to you, that will make me feeling just phenomenal for having been a part of your world. So please think about how you can make yourself more resilient, not just now, but in the future, for your community, for your business, for your family, and for others. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. We can do Q&A, and then I'll be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Well, since we haven't quite hit the ender, we'll go ahead and do question and answers before I close the webinar down. What are good courses on email marketing? It's difficult to evaluate if a course will meet your needs when unfamiliar with the topic.
Sure. So what I will do is, in the slide deck that Tracy is providing you all, and I believe she said she was going to post it on the website as well, I will put a link to a couple of email marketing courses that I really think are good courses that are worthy of your time and energy, that will really help you. So I'll put those links in there, and that way you can find them. And no, there's about 3 that I have links to in my bookmarks that I refer to folks, and I will give you those as links.
Great. What programs do you recommend to create ebooks from content?
So good old-fashioned Google Docs and Microsoft Word do a great job at being able to produce PDF books. If you're trying to produce an ebook of a different type, say EPUB or the Kindle, formatted books or those kinds of things, Mobi files, there's a tool called Calibre, C-A-L-I-B-R-E, Calibre, and Calibre is the #1 tool for me for creating those kinds of things. You just upload a cover, image and table of contents, put in your Word document or ODF or your Google document, download it as another file, and it pulls it in, and creates the PDF or the ebook for you in whatever formats you want.
Where can I go online to learn about Google AdWords and how to manage them ourselves?
Sure. So Google Ads themselves has a whole host of resources on the Google Ads site. And then again, I will do the same thing, and I will put in the slide deck a couple of resources for some Google Ads courses that I think are good. Actually, there are several, both Google Ads, Facebook Ads courses that I think are really good. Facebook actually provides their own learning platform called Facebook Blueprint. And so Facebook Blueprint is worth looking at for learning about ads. And many times, even though the ad platforms run differently, the ways in which you run ads are frequently the same. That is, the aims are the same, the campaigns are the same, and so therefore you can tailor the campaigns to the individual platforms. But yeah, I'll put a couple of links for you to some courses with the slides.
What's your opinion on Facebook advertising, specifically conversion ads?
So at the present moment, they're really well priced, and so conversion ads need to be good creative. I mean, like not good creative. They need to be great creative at the present moment, and they need to fit the context of what we're dealing with. So things that are, again, non essentials, and things that are going to not speak to the individual buyer that you're trying to communicate to, is not going to. But if you are running ads that are very well done, very well produced, and they're speaking to a very tailored audience, meaning that you're using the advanced functionalities of Facebook to target the right audiences, using custom audiences to be able to really get in front of folks that like lookalike audiences and so on and so forth. You can do some really good stuff. I'm actually running several ads right now on Facebook and getting really great conversion because it's just the right time for doing it, because I know exactly the people I'm trying to get in front of for the clients that we're running those ads for, and we're getting really great coverage. So yes, it can work, but they've got to be really, really good ads. I mean, I've seen even mediocre ads, good, fair to middling ads, they're not performing well, and that's just because people aren't in the mindset. But the ones that are really, really good, the ones that are great, are actually performing well.
Great. What's your opinion on ClickFunnels? Do you recommend a particular platform for using them?
Sure. So if you're working on ClickFunnels, I can certainly put you in touch with someone who's a ClickFunnels expert. It's a great platform. I'm not in that space, so I don't particularly utilize ClickFunnels in that way. I like to manufacture my own, but I totally understand the purpose and the desire to use ClickFunnels and tools like that. Many tools are out there that create that kind of that funnel. It's a funnel tool. So yeah, they exist. They work for those businesses that lend toward it. So if you're doing e-courses, or if you're doing digital goods, those kinds of things, they can work really well. If you're doing live training, they can also work well in those environments. I would be a little bit more skeptical for some of the other industries that would be in kind of the local business space. So I'd be cautious about that. So email me if you're in that space and you are thinking about it. I can give some guidance there. But depending upon whatever product or service you're providing, it could work. It just depends on how well it's set up. Again, this is about it's not about the particular tool. It's about your skilled execution of that campaign. And so often than not, what I see is poor execution with the wrong tool. And so if you get a class of tools that you execute well on, you're going to do well.
Ray, can you pop up your contact information slide again?
Sure.
There you go. All right, some specific questions from when you were presenting. What relevance does NAPH have for a business that exists strictly online?
Sure. So again, if your information has not changed, then you're fine. But I would still actually use this opportunity to post something to let people know that, because people just don't know. I still get emails to this day, after having been, we started our own, I had all of my staff go work from home starting at the beginning of February. And we are still getting messages. We've sent out emails to all of our clients. We've let everybody know, and we're still getting messages that people just aren't aware. So you can't do enough communicating to let people know that you are still out there. You're still providing the services that you're providing, and you're ready to do business. So this is just another opportunity to be able to get the word out.
I never got my Google postcard to acknowledge my Google listing. Any suggestions?
Yes, go to help.google.com, and then in the forum, you will be able to scroll down. There's a consumer section, and then there's a business section. Click on the business section, and there in that section, you will see the Google My Business section. If you open up a support ticket in that posting area, one of the community experts will go ahead and help you in that space. And then the community experts can bump you up to a Google support person if you need to. Otherwise, they can help you figure out what the next steps are for you.
Okay. What's the best strategy to be compensated for live Facebook videos, educational services, or is there a better method?
Sure, there's a whole host of things. One of the webinars I hope to do soon with you with the SBDC is on different products and services and how you can provide those digitally. And so I think it's just one of those things where you have to get creative with the various types of tools and technology that are available to you. And there's so many. So I can point out, there's learning platforms, learning management systems, or LMS tools that are designed for that kind of thing. You can do registration for something like a Facebook Live, but in a private environment. So you would use maybe YouTube Live with an unlisted link to be able to direct people from a payment portal. So they pay you, and then they get access to the YouTube link, which is not published or publicized on YouTube proper. And so you have lots of opportunities for being able to do that. You can share a Zoom link, just a normal Zoom link, even without Zoom webinar. You can share a private Zoom link with an email audience. So they pay, you get an email, and that has the link in it, and then they can attend a live training with you. And in a Zoom. I think it's a Zoom licensed account. You can have up to 100 people, you plus 99 other people, in a room together, and same price for the account, and you can bring people in and teach them in that kind of environment. And since it's not marketing, it's a paid environment, so you don't need to put it on Facebook, and people don't need to have any type of account other than downloading the Zoom software. Obviously, there are other tools out there other than Zoom that allow for you to be able to do that. I know Cisco WebEx is currently giving a free offering during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are a lot of options out there to be able to provide free training and those kinds of things for fee.
A follow-up on the listing. The caller or participant was really looking to how to deal with it if you don't have a physical address. How do you deal with the listings?
So Google My Business allows for virtual businesses to have listings for those businesses that provide services locally. So you just need to go to the Google My Business again. Go to help.google.com and find that Google My Business section, and you'll be able to find how to list and whether your business is capable of fitting the requirements for having a listing, even if you do not have a physical presence. So Google has changed that some time ago so that more businesses will be able to have a listing in the Google Maps directory, notwithstanding their public physical presence.
And if the business does not have a local presence?
Okay, that's fine. Still, I would still recommend the same thing. Go to help.google.com, type in your business name into the directory of categories of business, and Google may still have an option for you.
Great. I have a pop-up education business and it has high prices. Should I offer discounts if I just launched pricing, or is that flaky?
It's probably a little bit flaky. For that type of audience, they're probably not going to be open to it, and honestly, if you're not getting wide promotion of it, that's probably your biggest issue, is distribution of your promotional strategy. So it's about getting your name in front of enough people, not necessarily the pricing, right? Because that's a market where the price sensitivity is not going to be as motivating as the quality of the content and the timeliness of the content that you're providing.
If your business was just beginning to create a base of customers, where would you focus your ads?
I would focus on the people most likely to buy. And so I would do some buyer persona development, which means going through and identifying who the archetype is for your target audience or target audiences, right? So I would develop the people who are going to be the ideal buyers, and then matching up who if one of those buyer personas is the ideal buyer during this time for the product or service you're developing, then you can go ahead, or developed, then go ahead and run ads against those people or for those people. I would not try to run ads for your entire target market. I would really selectively choose the ones that fit your buyer persona that is right now. Going back to those 4 categories of folks, if yours fits into one of those categories and you know exactly which buyer persona you're going after, that's the one I would run ads for right now.
Okay. Small Several small businesses in my hometown are using Facebook Live to sell their products on certain weeknights. How can they increase the number of people watching?
So in other words, Tracy, they're doing what?
Um, it says they're using Facebook Live to show or sell products. And they're
Oh,
doing it
yeah.
on a certain night of the week.
Yeah, sure. So the number one thing those businesses can do is to increase distribution. So, right now I'm doing YouTube Live. Well, I can go to a platform that allows me to not just go live on YouTube, but go live on Instagram Live, on Twitter Live. Twitter actually has a live platform. It was Periscope, and they bought it, so they have Twitter Live. You can do live events on all kinds of platforms, and so that ends up being a distribution issue. So just getting a tool. There's a couple of them out there: Be Live, StreamYard, Zoom allows for custom live streaming. There's a tool called Restream.io. There are many different tools out there, and so wider distribution so that you're able to stream not just to one platform, because I don't watch Facebook Lives other than the ones I have to. When I want to consume something, I'm much more likely to watch you on. I just happen to watch a lot of Instagram Live videos, and so I'll be much more likely to watch you if I'm on Instagram Live, and so just like give people options, and more people will watch if you notify people, hey, here goes all the links to the various places that we go live. We're going live on these platforms, and join us. And making sure that you're also setting up the right marketing around it. People need to be notified multiple times before an event in order to be able to, have it bubble up and get on their radar. Make sure you have add to calendar buttons. There's a tool called Eventable, and create a free account, and all it does is just gives you a landing page, and someone can hover over one of their options: Google Calendar, Outlook Calendar, Apple, whatever. You click on it and it adds the content to their calendar so they remember the event. Something as simple as that. Or like on YouTube Live, I tell people, hey, make sure that you click that little set reminder button on our upcoming live, so that you get a notification in YouTube when we do go live that we are coming live to you. So just little things like that, but I think distribution is probably the next step for you.
Okay, some of these are getting into the weeds. We provide language services. My business is running at 90% by referrals from my clients who have used our services. What do you recommend for us to get more clients from bigger organizations, and how much money should we expect to spend on that kind of?
So I'll probably say, if you want to send me an email, we can have a more offline discussion about that. That's one that I'm going to have to dig into the details and learn a little bit more about you, and then we can have a more thoughtful discussion about that.
Okay. And I think this was answered in your talk about the different products, but follow up on the selling of products on Facebook Live. Is there a way for these to be live on multiple platforms at the same time?
Yes, StreamYard, Be Live. Oh no, Be Live only allows one platform, but I think you can use Restream with Be Live in order to get to other places. Restream is pretty much the de facto standard in going to multiple platforms at the same time. It's the tool that we're going to be using. And then Zoom does have a custom live streaming option, so you can use Zoom with Restream to go to many places. One point of frustration for anybody who might be like me and is particular, Zoom does put a logo into the stream when you stream live, and so it has a little Zoom logo wherever it goes. If you don't care, it's fine, but I'm probably going to not use Zoom for that soon, because once I start streaming across multiple platforms, it's kind of a branding nuisance to have that Zoom logo there. So Zoom, if you're watching, it's
Next, we know you're going to be a brand ambassador for Zoom too.
Yes, exactly.
Ray, would you go ahead and put those also in the presentation, the link that we're sending out, so people have those tools. I'm going to go ahead and close up since we're almost at 15 minutes after 2. Thanks everyone for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and it'll be posted on the virginiasbdc.org website. Be sure to join us at 1 p.m. tomorrow and on Thursday for our next 2 sessions. Tomorrow, we're going to have a cybersecurity expert from the Lord Fairfax SBDC that's going to present on how to best protect your business online. And Thursday, also from the Lord Fairfax SBDC, we'll be talking about 3 things you can do to connect with your customers during social distancing. And finally, if you missed yesterday's session on e-commerce platforms, you can find the recording, well, later on today on our website, again, virginiasbdc.org. And please continue to check on our website and follow us on social media. We're continuing to add programs all the time, virtual trainings and counseling sessions, so that we are all able to better navigate doing business in this new environment. Thanks again, Ray, for your presentation and staying on board and answering questions for us.
No problem. Take care, everybody. Good luck.
Take care. Bye-bye.